Yo, what up, boys? It's Flark, and we have a new season. And DK is very good in that season. And that's very good for people who play DK, which is us. So that's very good. We've had so much power directly injected into our DK veins that finally I think we are returning to the meta. I did believe that last season, but last season it was a PVE talent rework, and that's very hard to predict because it's just a bunch of new abilities added to the game. But if you increase the damage and overall power of a class, it tends to be better, and that's less hard to predict. We've got damage buffs, and conduit buffs, and legendary buffs, which make our double legendary synergies better, and tier sets, and then those tier sets were buffed. So I'm pretty sure this will be a good time to dust off your DK and start playing it. Now, there are so many borrowed power systems in the game right now. I cannot do a famously long Flark intro. We have to go right into the video because there is so much information to cover, and I know there's going to be questions about all of it. So, Frost DK, 9.2, Season 3 DK Guide. Here we go. Going to start with gear, which means we're going to start with stat weights. Last season, it was all verse all the time. That's because you had a Trinket 2 set that made verse 40% more effective. If you increase the value of a stat by 40%, it generally becomes a lot better. Now our tier set says increase your strength and stamina. This does not interact with any stat, which means we're going to go back to a stat weighting that may seem pretty familiar. Mastery, top. Verse, second. Haste, third. Crit, garbage. Crit is less garbage now, because your killing machine has so much value with the 4 set, which we'll talk about, that getting killing machines, even outside of Pillar, is actually really powerful. But that does not make it good enough, and our tier set gives us some crit anyway, so we are still going to have that be our worst stat. The only real shakeup here is Verse and Mastery. I do believe Mastery will be your best stat. That said, you don't need to gear specifically for Mastery. You're not looking for Mastery gear from PvE or Mythic Raids. The stat itemization that you get from a full set of proper PvP gear and your tier set, and gems and enchants directed toward Mastery, will be a prime combination of your stats. So, for example, you get PvP gear. It has verse main stat. That will cover all your verse needs. I know people always want to know a threshold. How much verse percent do I need? You want the verse percent that you get from PvP gear with verse on it. Some of your gear will not be PvP gear with verse on it because it's going to have a tier set piece. That is okay because you're already getting main stat verse on everything else. You get your mastery by running every single mastery piece, right, that PvP gear has, putting mastery on your legendary, which you will do for both legendaries, as we can wear 2 soon, and mastery gems and mastery enchants. You can see them in my gear. That will give you enough mastery, as you can see, to be very powerful. You also get them from Soulbinds. We'll talk about that later too. While you don't have to effectively search out for these pieces. You're not looking for some crazy mythic raid piece that is very precise that you have to reach for. You will have the stats you need if you just use gear that you can access from PvP. And you know this before because you've already done 2 seasons of it. Now you are just prioritizing mastery over verse. So that's where your gems and enchants will go. And that's, of course, how you'll continue to craft your legendaries. Haste is a great stat, but you will not need it as Frost to search out for it or to gem it in any way, because when you press your I win button, you of course get 27% from my current conduit. You'll get more as conduits level up. That is enough haste to make your burst window very impactful, and you get a fast enough global cooldown during that window to get all your damage off. So that is completely fine. As for enchants and gems, of course I already said it, it's mastery. You know the other enchants and gems to use. They have been the same the entire season. Rune Forges may have gotten swapped off. Until you get the 4 set, you will never swap off Razor Ice, but when you get it, we will all simultaneously try out the idea of putting on Fallen Crusader for Frost and getting Razor Ice from the proc Glacial Advance that you get for every killing machine, which is every Obliterate during your burst window. All of us will simultaneously try that together, and we will get more information when that 4 set comes out. For now, you will be running Razor Ice. Then, you may be running Fallen Crusader. Let us wait the 7 weeks until we all get to try that together, unless you're a lucky PvE fucko. Alright? So, That's stats. Next, Trinkets. A bunch of new ones. That's gotta be something, right? I don't like them. I don't like them at all. Bomb was extremely over the top and powerful. I actually have them all pulled up here on a Reddit post, so we'll open that real quick. This was the Bomb. You know it well, the Cosmic Gladiator's Resonator. It got nerfed recently in PvP. I hope it gets nerfed again. I never want to run this thing. When it was over the top, everybody would run it. Now it is not over the top, so rogue mages will still probably run it, as this guy agrees with. We do not need it. Badge perfectly synergizes with our cooldowns. That is what I want to run. That said, there is another interesting toy, the Spell Cleave Buster, this guy says. I completely agree, as it is solely magic damage, so fair point there. If we get to a meta that slows down enough where a BFA Season 3 kind of mantra comes out, where you equip 2 tanky trinkets and try and live as long as possible while rotting people down, then of course the Eternal Aegis is a perfect tech use into wizard cleaves, or really just any spell melee like DKDH, which has a lot of magic damage, and of course you can soak their burst during a 8-bomb limb go. There is no world where we know the value of this trinket so early into the season, so instead just grab it at any point, because the other ones, as we'll see in a second, are not good, and have it in your inventory. Upgrade it whenever you feel free, but now it is probably not that time because you'll be getting other Conquest gear from the vault that you will upgrade. But just pick this trinket up. The Trinket Weekly, if you know it from the Enclave, right over here, there's a Trinket Weekly. You can just get that every week, obviously, so you can just grab this trinket from one of those weeks. And if the meta slows down to a point, we will all know. I'll make an update video very late into the season because it's going to be a long one, like BFA Season 4 kind of deal. And if this meta shifts into this direction, we absolutely will use this as a tech choice. Resonator, again, it does a lot of damage. I hate it. I would rather use Badge for damage. It got nerfed. Maybe we stay away from it. I hate using trinkets like that. Maledict, we're not going to run. It is potentially powerful. We're not going to be running it, but some version of S-Play could be seeing this trinket. All you have to know is avoid it like you did the other Maledicts by using AMS or disrupting them during this window. It's a different type of effect, and now it's a cone, which means you could also get out of it. Again, we don't care. Badge is better for output pressure for Frost because of how perfectly it synergizes with our go. And then the other two are Crowd Control and Spell Interruption. They have some neat synergies. Again, Crowd Control prevention is not a problem that DK has, and we don't need to not be kicked during Fleshcraft, as fun as that may be. So that is the trinket overview. Pretty much the bottom line is, I don't like any of them. You might use the defensive one if somehow we shape into a BFA Season 3 meta, but thankfully, after the bomb nerfs, we will stick with our trusty Badge of Ferocity, which I love, as when you press your I win button, it is right there always, Mr. Reliable, giving you extra damage during that I win go. And especially with the tier sets, that is going to make strength during a proper window extremely impactful. Of course, we'll never run Insignia because our tier set front loads so much burst into our button presses. We need that strength when we press the button. And Insignia is random, so we do not run that. Badge, Medallion, you're good. Perfect. So, tier set. I had a window open on my computer there, and we are going to look at that right now. Tier set bonuses for Frost. Remorseless Winner gives you 8% critical strike when activated. Sounds bad? I'll get to it in a second. Consuming a proc of Killing Machine fires a Glacial Advance from your character. Sounds great. I'll get to that in a second. The 2 set is actually more powerful than it looks because we had so much damage added to things like A-Bomb Limb, from the damage buff, from the Conduit buffs, from the Legendary extending its duration, and the Glacial Advance that we'll be firing from this 4 set. Those things need to crit to do more damage, unlike Obliterate. The reason crit is generally bad for us is because Obliterate will always crit, and any crit chance that you have does not increase the damage of your Obliterate during a Killing Machine in any way. But now that we have so many other forms of high damage output, A-Bomb Limb ticking, even Remorseless Winner, actually doing a little bit more damage, especially with all the mastery that we'll be stacking, and of course the Glacial Advance that we're going to be firing, which is on every Obliterate and hits AoE. Critical strike actually becomes a little better. Now, of course, like I said, still your worst stat, but getting 8% of it for free is not that bad, and it's going to be during every burst window because you're going to use Remorseless Winter Stun to set up those burst windows, which means you will get the 8% crit exactly when you need it, which is great. What's more great, of course, the 4-set. I've talked about this so many times. I even talked about it in another video before I even made this video, but it is good, period. You are effectively just front-loading more damage into the window where you were already using to win the game. So now, not only is that window more powerful, it's also more cleave-centric, which reminds me of the Frost DK of old, where the AoE sustain is just so unbelievably high during certain windows, you can't heal through it. You can't even defensive through it. It is so difficult to manage, and Glacial Advance is an AoE hit. It's a little clunky of an AoE hit, which is why we never use the talent. But God, if they give us a free one on every single offensive button press that we do during Pillar, yes, that is going to absolutely create a torrent of AoE pressure. This talent is so powerful when used in that way. It is effectively going to define our entire season, getting this 4-set. And we don't even have it yet. This 4-set defines our season, and we don't even have it. That means as the season goes on, Frost DK is just going to get more and more powerful. And once this happens, every button press hits an AoE ability in addition to the button press it was already going to do, and applies Razor Ice, allowing us to have potentially 15% more strength during that window. That's disgusting. Effectively, I think during every one of these Killing Machine Obliterate, you'll be adding 7 to maybe even 12k crit AoE damage when you're fully geared, of course. Meaning if hitting 3 targets, which you can do with, again, this button that pulls everybody to you. I know, it's a crazy button. It actually allows you to AoE people. You could add 30,000 damage to each of those offensive globals with all of your modifiers, with a full set of gear, with perfect mastery stacking, and some crits, which you'll get more of when you press Remorseless from the tier set. See, now you're seeing why that's pretty solid, actually. Adding 30,000 damage to a global, it sounded like Necro last season, right? That is just so much front-loaded damage. I can't talk about it enough, though I really do have to move on. Bottom line is, the 4-set is so incredible that it does not matter what stats you have on the pieces with 4-set. You will run it no matter what, right? I know that some of the 4-set pieces that you can acquire do not have verse on them. Oh well, run it no matter what happens. The 4-set will be put on your character and you will never question it. That thing is too good, it outweighs every single combination of stats you could possibly have. So, that's tier sets. They're great, they're thoughtless, you don't have to change your playstyle at all, you just do unbelievably more damage. Congratulations. Welcome to the burstiest AoE cleave that World of Warcraft currently has to offer. I would defy somebody to find more AoE damage in a 20-second window than Frost DK is going to provide. Super fun. So, that is a lot of the gearing stuff. It should answer a lot of questions. You have no real need to search out for PvE gear. You will absolutely be running the tier set no matter what anybody tells you. You can still hang on to your trusty badge, macroed into your I win button, and Frost is just going to be very, very high output. Of course, that leaves us with one more gear-based question. Legendaries. Legendaries, I've been getting talked to a lot about on my stream because I currently run Wrist Guards of the Abomination. This was recently buffed. People are saying, you're not running Absolute Zero anymore, what happened? Well, we don't have the double legendary yet, and A-Bomb Limb got buffed a lot, so I am running it until we have double legendary. Then everybody will be running it because that's the double legendary that you have to choose. This legendary, if you want to have some fun before you unlock it for free from, I guess it's 2 weeks from now, put it on. Just put it on. It is 20% damage. You'll get a little taste of how unbelievable it'll be to have double legendary as Frost. 20% damage during your window, and the window is extended by 4 seconds, and you get more pulls, and you get more rhyme procs. It is just overwhelming pressure. Adding 20% damage to Obliterate is going to be insane. This also synergizes insanely well with the tier set because you're going to be adding 20% damage to the Glacial Advance as well, and every other button press that you do during your window. Rhyme proc, Obliterate, Rhyme proc, Obliterate, Frost Strike, Obliterate, and every single one of those Obliterates also gets a 20% Glacial Advance. Jesus Christ, now you're understanding why it's going to be good this season to be a Frost DK or any DK. Other video also coming out today. But that's not what you're asking. You're not asking, is Risk Guards of the Abomination good? Because the answer is an undeniable, undisputable yes. What you're asking is, what is the other legendary that I use? Or you were maybe asking as well, do I want to use A-Bomb for the next 2 weeks until we all get it for free? Yes, you do. The other legendary is still going to be Absolute Zero. That is the one you used for the entire last season. Now you just happen to get both, and that is incredible synergy because now you'll have a huge Frostworms hit that is also buffed by 20% during your A-Bomb limb, which is actually going to make it pretty impactful. And you'll get that AoE stun, which is so important now because your cleave is so high, as we've just spent 20 minutes or so talking about, that you must stun them in it. And having another on-demand stun is reliable, even with Dead of Winter. Having DR stun is extremely valuable for either Dead of Winter to be DR'd or Frostworms Fury. That said, if you want to, you can put together the highest overall output Frost build by running Koltira's Favor. And I might try this myself. None of these other legendaries are even remotely valuable enough. Death's Embrace could have been, I talked about it a lot before the expansion came out, as something just so remarkable. If we get to the same meta that I was talking about before, the BFA Season 3 meta, where that trinket that absorbs magic damage actually could see use, then yes, of course Death's Embrace would be a great second option, because you'll use Remorseless Winter Stun for your stun, and you'll use A-Bomb Limb for your big pull and your unbelievable unpeelable damage, and then you will be nearly immortal and unpeelable yourself by using Death's Embrace. I've been talking about that since the release. We've never had an opportunity to run it. It's possible the meta slows down or actually requires enough healing and absorption from Death's Embrace, as well as its immunity to all CC. Remember, when you press AMS and it lasts 5 seconds longer, you are immune to harmful magical effects for longer. But realistically, you will pretty much always run Absolute Zero unless you want to be an output king, in which case you'll try Koltira's, or you want to be a unpeelable defensive king, in which case you would try Death's Embrace. Nothing else has any merit. Don't even look at them. I'll look at them for you so you don't have to. Rage of the Frozen Champion is beyond garbage. We never, ever, ever need extra rune generation or rhyme procs during our burst. We already just get them by default. You can see it right here when we're bursting. Biting Cold is too bad. Remorseless Winter damage in PvP is not very reliable. Pheromones, too clunky. Death Grip extra. I think we have enough of those, please, from this button that's swirling around me right now, and nothing else even matters. So, 3 legendaries that you will look at in addition to this one, which you will have by default. All DKs will have this once double legendary comes out. You will look at Absolute Zero as it is the most reliable and overall value for your class. You will look at Death's Embrace on the off chance that the meta shifts in a direction that requires this utility. And you will look at Koltira's Favor because I know you are also tempted to see how hard Obliterate can hit with all the modifiers that you have plus 1 more. You're tempted. Don't even lie to me. You're tempted too. I know it. And that's your legendaries. The main point of it all is Risk Guards of the Abomination, which will change to Waste Guard of the Abomination, will be the defining power of legendaries for your class. It is unbelievably good, and you will love having it every day that you have it. Congratulations. Now we are going to move out of gear. If there is anything that I went too fast with, please just rewatch this section. I will have timestamps for everything. It's because there are so many borrowed power systems, and I really, really want to make sure that I have concrete information for all of them. So far, I think we've done a good job. That is a full set of stats, trinkets, tier sets, and legendaries that you now know definitively what you need to do with them. It's pretty obvious, but now you have that information, and I'm happy for you. PVE Talents. This section has been done by me maybe 7 times, and I don't think it's changed in almost any of them. Which means for the first time in a Flark video guide, I will not go row by row, explaining why each talent is better than the others in that row, or any situational choices that you will do for 20 minutes. Instead, I'll do it in 2. Everything you see on the screen right now is what I run every single game. I haven't swapped, ever. The only swap that you would ever make is clicking this talent, Wraithwalk. Because if you want a little bit more survivability, you play Pact. I hate dying to a fault. Perhaps I should run Wraithwalk more than I do. I do select it occasionally. I should probably select it more. I just like having a panic button. It's a bad panic button, but with the stam buff from your Trinket 2 set, and all the stam that we have now from the full set of Season 3 gear, and how stamina, creeps up faster than primary stat does as a result of how these 2 effects are added. You get more stamina, obviously, about double. So, Death Pact, over the course of the season, finalizing now, has probably cemented himself as a pretty good panic button. It is a pretty dang good panic button. As long as you press it at a point where you have nothing else left, so you just press it and kite, and try and kite off the healing absorption, it can be one more save that otherwise you didn't have and you would have lost at that moment. But Wraithwalk is the utility choice for, roots from a Survival Hunter, Jungle, Frost Mage, Fire Mage. Frost Nova is very good to get out of, to peel for your teammates, and they can't really dispel Nova off you because there's Poly in the game. And RMP, you'll be seeing a lot of that. Just check my Twitter if you don't believe me. It's RMP, Nerf RMP posts everywhere. But it's a very good tool for helping your teammates when you're generally going to be rooted away and just sitting there doing nothing. Because the only thing you can do while rooted is grip and chains, and you've probably already pressed those buttons. So now you're just sitting there in a root while your teammates die. Wraithwalk, very powerful for that. Death Pact, a very good self-heal button. We've seen some talks about Hypothermic versus Gathering Storm. Gathering Storm is actually good despite the simming counter synergy with Dead of Winter, because even though you get less Remorseless Winters, buffing the duration, which it does, extending the duration, is extremely valuable because you can get a second Dead of Winter stun while extending Remorseless Winter. So yes, Gathering Storm is the definitive talent, even though it doesn't have that much damage pressure. It just gives you enough of the stun and a little bit more damage during that window that it's better than the other options. Hypothermic, we've got plenty of runic power during our burst, and as a defensive utility, this isn't that great. And Glacial, we now know, is added to our class passively, so we will never, ever run this because we have it now. So the effective value that it gets from applying Razor Ice, which was the only reason to even try it before, is now passively added to our class. So I'm going to take my hands off the mouse. What you have right in front of you is the talents you will always, always, always run for PvE. For PvE talents, you will always run these PvE talents. They are just the highest possible output and value, and Obliteration is completely undeniable. It is the thing that defines our specs. So you will never, ever swap off of this. The only thing you might ever click in the starting room is Wraithwalk. And that's it. That's the only choice you make with PvE talents. Unholy is totally different. Frost is this way. That's the way it is. It's a little frustrating at times, especially with this first row that's just been so borderline unusable. But we're not going to talk too much about that. I've talked about it before. Might have been a little more than 2 minutes, but it wasn't 20, so I win. PvP talents, though. This got that entire rework. Then we got some nerfs on it, which ended up killing Frost DK and Unholy DK last season because they were not even going to be good enough with the PvP talents unnerfed, and they nerfed them. I hope it wasn't because I was so excited to play with them. Maybe they thought, oh my god, this is too overpowered. Look how excited everybody is. Let's nerf them, and then we know what happened last season. But with the buffs to our class as a whole, PvP talents are pretty impactful, actually. They were pretty interesting. And of course, if our class is better, then our PvP talent utility will actually be very impactful. So we will go through one more time with a quick overview of every situation where this PvP talent could be chosen. And that will be our PvP talents overview. And then we will create a default list and against some certain comps, and you'll know everything about PvP talents. So we're going to start right at the top with Death Chill. Not good enough. You have enough disruption. An extra root is not good. It removes the Chains of Ice effect when you apply Death Chill, which is not good. It's nice to have an AoE root on Remorseless Winter, but you already have an AoE Blind, an AoE Slow, and 2 AoE Stuns. So an AoE root, not necessary. It was very good in Legion when you didn't have so many other options for AoE Stuns. Now it is not good. So Death Chill, not horrendous, just not powerful enough to be impactful. Delirium is good against mages and monks. DH, it's not good enough to reduce DH mobility. And generally, when they're playing DH Boomy or DH DK, so you would probably want Big Zone, which means you can't fit this in. But monks and mages get pretty hard countered by Delirium. It's very easy to apply with Howling Blast, making it a great answer if you're running at a Mistweaver Monk, a great answer if you're running at a Windwalker Monk, or a great answer if you're running at a Mage, and hopefully RMP gets nerfed, making Mage an actual kill target. Then Delirium will completely shut them down. If they are less tanky overall, they will not be able to handle the fact that they're less tanky and they have no movement. So Delirium, Mage, and Monk answer. Perfect. Defined. Chill Streak. Very good, still. And Nerf Chill Streak was a meme or whatever. It still does like 50 to 55,000 damage while slowing them for 70% and not costing any runes at all, which means you can throw it into any window where you have 2 people stunned on top of each other and you have 3 sources of AoE stun. 2 from Dead of Winter during your burst and absolute 0 when we're running it. You also have a much buffed limb, so getting Chill Streaks off is really not that hard. You can even do it in between goes. You don't have to do it on your go. You can just do your entire I win button and do all your bursts there and save Chill Streak, and then on your next Remorseless, before Pillar comes up, you can stun 2 people together and Chill Streak them, and it just adds pressure that they probably don't have any defensives to deal with. So, Chill Streak's still a great button. Anytime you have any melee on the team, not both melee, but any melee, because if it's like lock melee, you grip the melee to the lock, the melee's on you, and you're on the lock, you're gonna find a way to get probably 40,000 damage out of Chill Streak, and for a no rune cost, 70% slow on a short cooldown that does 50,000 damage, more with gear, of course. That's still a good button press, even though it's not, I guess, entire game defining like it was in BFA. At the end, it is still pretty dang good. Shroud of Winter never became valuable enough to use. It was our replacement for Heartstop, sort of. Of course, it is not even close to the power of Heartstop. It is interestingly, situationally useful, but the use is so low and niche that in a meta with this much power, Shroud of Winter does not have enough power to compete. I will let you know over the course of this 10-month season if anything changes. We'll see if there's ever a time where reducing somebody's range by 30% is actually so impactful against a certain comp that you would take it over your other ones. I have never once done that. I don't know if any other DK has. I would believe the answer is no. Dark Sim is the coolest spell that we will never use. Moving on. Dome of Ancient Shadow is a must pretty much into everything with high magic burst, which is Mage, Combust, Rent, Wings, DK, A-Bomb Limb. I should use that more than I do. Sometimes I get greedy and use an AoE output setup with Streng, but I should be using Dome. You just Dome A-Bomb Limb. It's very obvious. Anything with high magical pressure, Wizard Cleaves, RMP, DHDK, just press Zone on their cooldowns. There. Now you have reduced the effectiveness of their cooldowns. That's a great trade. Dome is a great button, and you will be using it all the time into those comps. Spell Warden got nerfed. Still actually extremely impactful for overall healing. We know this talent has been bugged since release. Looks like they're able to fix that and nerf the effect. It was truly just a self-sustained insanity. It kind of still is. If there is a comp that you just can't seem to live through for some reason and it has magical damage, run Spell Warden. Wizard Cleaves, it still has value, especially if they want to cleave. If Aflock becomes very good this season, which I have no idea if it will. Just wait until end of season before disputing that. Remember, things are going to change with the tier set. And if you're seeing a lot of them, anything that applies pressure to you to rot your team down, Spell Warden still has a ton of value, because not only does it save your healer having to heal through multiple people, which will save him cooldowns like you have no idea, it will also apply a disruptive effect to them, as that's what Spell Warden does. Even with the nerf, it still does the same thing it does. But yes, we will be running it a lot less, especially since it's not passively glitched into our class. So we will be running it a lot less. Death's Echo is fun. It ends up being really good for anti-mobility and buffing your own mobility. Death's Advance, especially with the Finesse Conduit, is very impactful. You move faster, which DK absolutely needs, and you remove the ability to slow you, as well as the ability to knock you, which is good against Ellie and Priest. But that's pretty impactful. And if you have more mobility yourself and more anti-mobility for them, you end up doing pretty solid against mobility classes. So anytime you don't have a third PvP talent that you've been able to slot in and it's just irreplaceable and you've had problems with a DH or a monk because they're mobile, you can run Death's Echo and shut down their movement even harder than you would have. Pretty cool. Strang is very good. It destroys our Shaman. You can actually just train our Shaman and run Strang, and it is a complete answer to everything they do. All you have to do is watch out for Aura Mastery, because if you Strang into it, it will immune them. I think it's Spirit Walker's Grace with the PvP talent. That's what their Aura Mastery is. Aura Mastery is a blanket term from ages ago used to describe when they are immune to kicks and silences. They become immune. Classes like HPAL, which have Divine Favor, do not make them immune to silence, so silencing that is extremely good, but a buffed Aura Mastery Concentration Aura does make them immune to silence, so stringing that does not work. And you'll find out these little details as you play the game. It's impossible to go over every DK-based interaction in one guide video, and that's not what we're doing here, but you will find out these interactions as you play. Stringing HPAL during Divine Favor, stringing Disc pretty much after they've trinketed is disgusting because now they can't use any of their walls, which is the only way they can survive generally. And stranging our Shaman, as long as you avoid their immunity to silence, is also disgusting and they will actually die. You can strang HPAL during Divine Favor and kill them, or you can go their teammates, same with Priest, but I swear when you go strang into our Shaman, you might want to just run at them because there's not a lot they can do. When you have Remorseless Stun half, and Strang, sometimes they can press every button and still die. I feel like there's been clips of that happening, some of which I've been involved in. So DK does very good into killing our Shamans, and this is one of the biggest tools why. So Strangulate, very good against those three classes that I named. Holy Priest, counted as Priest, or Priest, Paladin, Shaman. Bad against our Druid. Mistweaver, I think there's better options, and they're generally so far from you that stringing them and going their DPS is not quite as good. So Priest, Shaman, Paladin, super yes. Other classes, probably not. Our Druid is probably a big no. They have Hots and Bear Form. You're never going to kill them with a Silence. You're generally not going to kill their teammates with a Silence. You beat our Druids in a different way, generally just swapping off Hots. Strang is not a great tool into them. Dead of Winter, extremely impactful. Gathering Storm actually creates the torrent of pressure that this talent needs to be good. It's funny, it's been such a meme for so long, and then all of a sudden, hey, it's awesome. Gathering Storm does allow it to get a reliable second AoE stun, which means you can stun an entire team for 4 seconds pretty reliably, or actually effortlessly, because Lim keeps them in it, which means this always goes off. And then you can stun them all again as a pseudo interrupt / 2-second DR stun in your own same go. So that means from this one PvP talent during your opener, when you press your I win button, that pulls them all in to your Remorseless Winter, which stuns them, you can get 6 seconds of AoE stun by yourself with one PvP talent. Yeah, that's really good. You will run it almost all the time. The only time it's not that good is into spell cleaves, because you can really only get one stun with it. And Grip Blind Remorseless Winter Stun is not as reliable as just Grip Blind Absolute Zero Stun, which is what you would always run into that. So Dead of Winter is really good when, again, there is at least one melee on the team. Lock melee, Mage melee, double melee. If there's a melee there, Dead of Winter will generally get super value, and you can still Grip Blind and stun the healer if he gets slowed well enough, maybe Ursul Vortex if you're playing with an R-Druid, and you can still get that AoE stun. But generally, you will always get 2, and 2 people stunned for 4 seconds is an incredible peel, incredible way to set up Chill Streak, and a ton of damage during your opener. Great talent. And finally, Bitter Chill. It's kind of a catch-all. It's just fine. It's fine to everything. It's that perfect PvP talent when you're like, I don't know if I have a good third I like into this comp. Like if there's a comp that Just none of those other situational choices seemed like they would be that impactful. Turbo comes to mind for me, right? Dome is not that good into Turbo. Spell Warden is not that good into Turbo. Maybe they're playing with an R-Druid, so you don't like Streng as much. See how all of a sudden some of these situational choices just don't feel that good? You can still run them. They just don't feel that good. You run Bitter Chill. If you put chains on the Enhance and chains on the Warrior, you just slowed them for 8% haste during their opener, which is frustrating, especially in a meta where damage is so important to get out quick. You frustrated them, and while you're doing your burst, you're frost striking them, which is refreshing chains, keeping them slowed during your burst and keeping an 8% damage an 8% haste reduction on them, which is good. So Turbo is a nice call for that. It's also sometimes good into Wizards when coupled with Spell Warden. It's extremely disruptive. Their casting speed is slowed. Then their haste slows them even further. And that's actually very good. So if there's just something that you want to disrupt and you can't find a super good use of any of the other situational PvP talents that I showed above, you run Bitter Chill. It's a catch-all. It's a jack of all trades. Its haste reduction is good into everything in the game, of course. It is just a stat that makes your class better when you have it. Even if a class isn't running a lot of haste, then they go into negative haste, which is not some mystical force that makes them even worse. It's just they have slower than normal GCDs and regeneration of their power source or whatever. And melee swings, any of that stuff that haste does. Casting speed, anything that haste does, of course. Reducing haste will always be valuable no matter what level of haste they have. And that's PvP Talents. Perfect. Very simple. For PvE and PvP, I just went over all of the situational choices again. Some of them have changed a little bit from prior talks, but of course not everybody has to watch my whole assortment of videos to get information for the next season, so that is why I went over it here for you guys now as a refresher or brand new information if you're new. Which leaves us with just the final borrowed power systems of this silly expansion called Shadowlands. We have Covenants, Soulbinds, Conduits. This will be so easy for DK. It seems like a huge section. I'm going to turn it into nothing. Covenants, Necrolord. Okay, that section's over. You're never, ever going to play anything else. Believe me, I have tried to work with the power that can be formed with Night Fae and double D&D, so you effectively have double Covenant ability. It just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter no matter what they do. This button that does all of this is just too impactful. It's defined any success that we could have and all of the success that we'll have this season, especially with the legendary buffs now. It is just indisputable. You cannot swap off Necrolord. I've tried Night Fae, I've tried Kyrian. They have a lot of power in them, but they are not as spec defining and win condition defining as the swirly boy right there. So Necrolord, boom, done. You can try other stuff. They buff those things too. They buff the Conduits and the Legendaries for the other Covenants. If you're so bored with Necro, you can try them, but you will be weaker than had you not done it. It's just the way that it is. Soulbinds, though, you've got two. Plague Divisor and Bonesmith. Emity's fallen off a little bit. Plague Divisor and Bonesmith both do what it does a little better. Bonesmith is the ultimate AoE output. Pretty much output in every way. Soulbind, because of Carver's Eye. When you have a comp with any form of pets, that's hunter pets, lock pets, but also clones or Ghost Wolf from Enhancement Shaman, or Unholy DK pets. If you have any pets at all, you will be able to get even more value out of this because you'll have more things to hit all the time and they'll generally be above 90%. So anything with pets, Bonesmith is an auto pick. Their pets will be healed up by all of the inherent passive healing mechanics that pet classes tend to have. And then you will get constant procs of 136 mastery that stacks. So you'll probably get 300, then 400 from these pets. And you will do unbelievable damage the entire game because extra mastery as our best stat is just so good. But if they have no pets at all and you want a little bit more self-sustain and single target output, look no further than Plague Divisor. You have Kevin's Oozling, which we know very well, just a 6% damage buff pretty much the entire time. And of course, you have this row, which you could either play another potency conduit on, or you could have the ultimate output spec. Match this with Goltira's and you're just a total memester, because for 15 seconds in your burst, if you go right off the bat, you press that I win button and you go, you actually have another 12% damage modifier on all of your abilities. That's just damage done by 12%. If you hit them and just immediately do the go, you get a 12% modifier plus the Goltira's 10% modifier, and you are going to hit a world record obliterate. Super fun. But if you don't want to be that memey and you want to play a longer game, or if the meta shifts to a little bit of dampener, of course you'll go for the third potency slot, and Ooze's frictionless goading, which is nerfed. It's 7.5%, but still some sustain healing that is good in a tankier meta. So Bonesmith, AoE pressure, or if there's any pets on the enemy team. All other situations, stay with your Plague Divisor. You see my paths. They're pretty obvious what you're going to run. Pause the screen, pause the video right now if you want to just look at them. There is only one thing I think that I do differently, and I'm completely certain about this. I'm going to run this than anybody else. It's this middle row right here. Hermer's, is that how you say it? Hermer's Arsenal. Marrow Gemstone gives you 18% critical strike for 10 seconds after you land 10. Tier set gives you 8% crit. Obliterates are a guaranteed crit, and you have so many little hits from Frostfever ticks and A-bomb limb ticks that you can proc this in your go. Which means for all the reasons that I said the 8% crit during your burst is good, 18% crit is very good. 18% crit plus 8% from Remorse plus your baseline 5 means you will actually be doing, for all of those other ability effects, Glacial Advance, A-bomb limb ticks, Frost Fever ticks, Frost Strike hits, you will actually have 26% more crit just from those two effects right there, which actually gives you, as a class running 0 crit, a ton of crit. Pretty fucking remarkable, actually. So I don't know if you see this. I don't know if this is, I haven't been able to look at other DKs and what they're running. I think generally people go for the triple potency. I am completely fine with running double potency and getting 18% more crit chance during my burst. And yes, it only applies once every 60 seconds, but guess what? Our burst window is once every 60 seconds. It's perfect. So I will actually always be running this. You'll never see me swap off. I think that it is better than every other choice in that row. And if you were looking for some interesting little Flark things that he does that maybe others don't do because I think it's ridiculous, this might be one of them. Again, I haven't looked, but Heimer's Arsenal for Bonesmith and possibly Plagueys for Plague Divisor. This one is less always than the Bonesmith Soulbind choice. But again, it is the highest output you could possibly put into DK when you get the 6% here and the 12% there. But for sustain AoE damage, look no further than the best thing for that, which is Bonesmith plus Carver's Eye plus Harmer. And that's the choice. Again, that's why M&E is never going to be used, because Bonesmith completely outweighs it in every way. And that would be your Soulbinds, which brings us to our final talking point. That is potency, conduits, and the others, but they're so obvious it'll take me 5 seconds. Potency conduits now actually have value for Frost because they buffed Frost Strike last season, and they buffed the crap out of Brutal Grasp this season. So, Accelerated Cold as a potency conduit, non-negotiable, always run. Brutal Grasp as a potency conduit, non-negotiable, always run. If you need a third, I believe Eradicating Blow. Frost Strike buffs, plus all the crit that you'll be getting, makes Frost Strike crit more, plus all the mastery that you will have, heavily buffs Frost Strike, plus this conduit means you might actually have insane Obliterate Global with Glacial Advance to pretty impactful Frost Strike Global to set up another Obliterate Global that's insane, to set up another Frost Strike Global that's actually pretty impactful. And every single global is going to be chunking health pools. So, if you need a third potency conduit, that's Eradicating. The other two are non-negotiable. Brutal Grasp and Accelerated Cold, you will always, always, always run. You can see in my Plague Divisor how that works, right? Accelerated, always run. Brutal, always run. This one, my third, Sometimes I might run this for 12% damage overall, but if I want the third potency, you just click it in the arena. You can do that, by the way, and you will get your third potency, which is Eradicating Blow and Oozes. You can do it here too, but I refuse. I'm always going to run this 18% crit thing. It's too good. Finally, your other conduits, we've run them the entire season. Nothing has changed. Deathstrike Conduit, awesome. Sustain healing, you love it. Lichborn Conduit, awesome. An extra damage reduction. This meta is high damage, just like all of them. You want an extra form of damage reduction. A 2-minute cooldown for another 12% wall. That'll get higher as the conduit goes up. Of course, that's good. And finally, whenever you need to slot a finesse conduit, which you generally don't want to do any more than just the one, it's of course Chilled Resilience. You get more outs for stuns. Of course, you get your wall back up faster. Those two things alone make this extremely good because getting out of stuns is very good in an RMP meta because I don't know if you know this, but Rogue is actually good at stunning you. But no other finesse conduit is worth going. We don't need another slow. This is terrible. We don't need more runic power. This is terrible. And the only other thing you would ever run is fleeting, but I don't see a path where you would ever need to make that happen. It is just my goofy Plagueis preemptive strike build, which I don't think anybody else is going to run, but I still love doing it because it's the highest output you could possibly have. And that, my friends, is Frosty K this season. You are unbelievable upfront pressure, on-demand damage, a cleave machine with a longer cleave window buffed by your insanely powerful legendaries, and a fantastic cleave-oriented 4-set. Your class is good again, both of them, other video coming out today. You will love Frosty K this season, and absolutely, if you're a Frosty K player, you can play that, or if you're an Unholy DK player, you can play that. There is never going to be a situation where you say, I wish I was blank. You will be able to pick the spec that you want to play, and you will be able to perform competitively in PvP. I will eat my shoes if that is not true. I know, last season it didn't come to fruition, but that's just one season out of the bajillion that we've had. BFA Season 4 was this exact same dynamic. BFA Season 4, you could play Unholy or Frost. Multiple people got rank 1 with either of them, and you played at the highest possible level with either spec. I know that seems like an eternity away, but it was actually just 2 seasons ago that both specs were insanely viable. I believe that will happen again. So, this is all the information. Of course, I will have to make an update video. This is the one time I'm guaranteeing an update video because tier sets will come out and double legendary will come out. And then we will play hundreds of games with both. And if I get any more information during the course of the season, I will share that with all of you. So make sure, I've never said this in my entire life, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and you will have that update video the second you need it. I hope you guys have a blast this season. I really think this is a good opportunity to get all the goals you've ever wanted to get as a DK. MMR will be inflated. This season will be long and DK will be good. So go out there and achieve whatever you want. I appreciate you guys for watching me. I appreciate you guys for watching me even though I am a competitive nerd on my stream. That's very kind of you. I'll try and improve every day, sort of. Promise. Kind of. Almost. Could be. Much love. I'll see you in this season. GG's.